Hey there, everyone. This is Noah from Knights of 67 with a different type of WoW discussion video. As I mentioned in my previous video, I alluded to the fact that my next WoW discussion video was going to be whether or not Miss Pandaria is a bad, good, whatever expansion. And that's indeed what this video is. But it's going to be a bit different because I feel like I may go off on a tangent, and so depending on how long, this particular section is, it will most likely be broken into two different parts. The way I've wanted to go about this video is listing the negatives and reasons why people have left Mr. Pandaria, why people don't like it, and then my personal thoughts on those particular matters. And then the second part will most likely be positive things that have been, really well executed, things that I've liked, things that the community as a whole have liked, things that Blizzard has done right, and everything like that. And then I will come to the conclusion whether or not I think Mr. Pandaria has been a bad expansion or whatever. Now, of course, that thing is, totally personal. I mean, whether or not you think it's a bad expansion or not is solely based upon whether you think it is or not. But I'm just trying to look from a general standpoint. So please understand that you are entitled to your own opinions, and I completely understand that. But I'm just giving my 2 cents on it. And the community as a whole, this by no means applies to you or anyone you know, but it is just a general consensus and then my thoughts on the matter, nothing more. And it may contain some controversial, thoughts and everything like that. So please don't try and get too upset about it because this is just a discussion video and the point is to obviously discuss and debate things. So please don't try and take it too seriously. And I hope you all enjoy this video. And if I start to, go off on a tangent, I can't really control that. But we'll see how it goes, and I hope you enjoy. All right, so the first thing I want to cover here is obviously the community's thoughts. And I have a few select features in the game, or just general things that the community as a whole has not particularly liked. And then after I go over the community's problems, I will give my critique, I suppose, to the community's thoughts as a whole. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the community's thoughts. Okay, so the first thing, obviously, is the thing that everyone knows and everyone loves is Raid Finder. Obviously, it's been a huge subject of debate in Mists of Pandaria, and throughout its lifespan, it's been a vocal point of the expansion. You really can't get much stuff done if you're just an average Joe without stepping foot in a raid finder and everything like that. And that's definitely proven to be an issue because people don't like raid finder. It's not fun. It's not difficult. It's not, challenging. It's mind numbing and stupid. And people feel like they are forced to do something that they don't want to do. And that's completely understandable. And so that is one contributing factor as to why people have been very outraged with Mists of Pandaria because honestly, Raid Finder has replaced the aspect of 5-man dungeons, which doesn't particularly sit well with a lot of people because throughout WoW's lifespan, whether it be Vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, all of those expansions and eras of WoW have had 5-man dungeons be a very important aspect in whether it be gearing up, whether it be getting raid experience, whether it be getting justice or valor points, and that's just a few um, of the uses of 5-man dungeons throughout the eras and expansions. And it certainly has changed. And obviously, in Mists of Pandaria, they haven't added a single heroic dungeon since 5.0, since the expansion launched. And so a lot of people do not like that at all. And that's completely understandable because of the role that 5-man dungeons have played in the past. I suppose people have thought that they will always play a role like that, but that's not necessarily the case. Obviously, Blizzard has wanted to go a different direction this expansion. They have replaced 5-man dungeons with 3-man scenarios and heroic scenarios, and with Raid Finder, and that does not sit well with the community as a whole, which again, as I've said a lot, is perfectly understandable. So that is one reason, and probably the biggest, that has made people leave Mists of Pandaria, or has made them unhappy with it as a whole. And another reason, I suppose, would be this much of the same going on with the daily quests. Now, this is sort of irrelevant now because I believe they have gotten rid of like having to get like exalted or revered or whatever with certain reputations in order to get gear. I'm not positive if that's been initiated in game, but I heard it was coming, so I just assume it's here since it's 5.4. Um, but again, with the whole idea of having to do something that you don't want to, that was kind of the idea with the daily quest hubs in Mists of Pandaria. Obviously, 5.0, they people called it World of Daily Craft, and that's exactly what it was. You would have to get on, do your dailies every single day, and you would have to do them with numerous factions, and then you would have to, like level up factions, or well, rep up factions, I should say, in order to unlock quest hubs for other factions. And I mean, you had a couple ultimatums as to why you would want to do it. The first off was just extra valor per day. You could get good gear at the time. You could get some really cool looking mounts. You could get, I believe, a few transmog pieces as well with the Shadow Pan. And so, I mean, there were certainly rewards, but I guess the whole debate was whether or not those rewards were really worth the time and effort, because it took a long time to get exalted with even one reputation, let alone several. And again, it goes back to that whole idea, as I mentioned with Raid Finder, having to do something that you really shouldn't have to do unless you want to do it. And that's really the whole thing with just video games in general is, I want to play it and I don't want to have to be forced to do something that I don't think is fun. So that has been much of the debate to Mists of Pandaria as well. And then, of course, before the expansion was even launched, before it went into beta or anything, I believe it was about October of 2011 that Blizzard revealed the Mists of Pandaria trailer for the first time to the public, and the responses were about 50-50. About half the community loved it or was indifferent, or 50% of the player base absolutely hated it. And you just had to look up that video on YouTube to get that. And initially, the expansion right off the bat was not off to a good start. Immediately, before anyone knew anything about the expansion other than it was about the Pandaren and we were going to Pandaria, they immediately started saying that the expansion was going to be terrible, that it was going to suck, that Blizzard was not, doing what they should. It was stupid. It was random. Just those are a few things. Obviously, the PG versions of some things that were said, but nevertheless, they were said, and people were not happy about the Pandarans or the land of Pandaria at all. Now, most people are confused as to where the Pandaren even came from. Most people are just unaware. They believe that Blizzard completely made them up out of their heads, and at one point they did, but it was not during the Mists of Pandaria concept stage. For those of you that don't know, Pandaren were first announced in the run-up to Warcraft 3 before it was announced. I believe it was 2001 or 2002 that the Pandaren were kind of leaked out there by Blizzard. They drew some concept art of them, and maybe even a few teasers, the screenshots, I'm not entirely sure. And they basically said, oh, this is a cool new race you can play, And it turns out the whole thing was just an April Fool's joke, but people loved the idea so much because it was like this badass monk panda warrior, that Blizzard ended up incorporating the Pandaren Brewmaster as a hero that you could play as in the Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne expansion pack. That you could purchase the hero from the taverns when they released Tavern Heroes, and they also included Shen Stormstout in the Warcraft 3 campaign, the prologue campaign, I believe it was, with the founding of Durtar with Rexar and Vol'jin and all those. So Shen obviously played a, decently important role in the Warcraft universe before even Mists of Pandaria, and obviously we've seen more of Shen in Mists of Pandaria. Maybe not as much as people would have liked, but he's still been in it a significant amount. And so when you look at it, people are kind of unaware of that, and they think that Pandaren were just made up on the spot, but that is certainly not the case. But now you are informed if you did not know prior. And so people obviously didn't like the whole idea of pandas, as it is commonly referred to. People referred it to as Kung Fu Panda. And obviously people were just very, very displeased with it. They hated the idea, and the land of Pandaria itself was deemed as stupid and worthless because Warcraft has so much unexplored lore, like Sargeras and the Burning Legion or Queen Azshara and N'Zoth, which, by the way, I've made plenty of videos on those two topics for future expansions. And, so I guess people feel like they were just kind of mistreated, I guess. It's like waiting for something epic and then just getting pandas as filler content, which again is completely understandable why people would be upset about it and everything like that. And people thought because the land of Pandaria itself was referenced by Chen Stormstout, but everything surrounding it, the races of Pandaria, the geography, the zones, everything like that. The factions are completely made up. The August Celestials, all of it. It's completely made up, and because it is, people label that as stupid and worthless. But I don't necessarily see it that way, but this isn't my time to give my opinions quite yet. So people obviously looked at that not very positively, and those are a few reasons. I'd say that the key contributing factors as to why people have gone up and left, and people have also tried to make the argument that the content has not been very good, and I'll try and debate that when the time comes for me to give my opinions, but people just haven't been very happy with the content and everything as a whole. So really the topics that I've covered are really the main reasons why I think people are so distraught over Mists of Pandaria and why people think it's so much worse than Cataclysm and everything like that. So I suppose I will now go ahead and give my opinion on each of these points. All right, so now for my thoughts on the community's thoughts and feelings towards Mists of Pandaria and the not so good things of it. So first off, my opinion on Raid Finder. Um, Overall, I think Raid Finder probably should not really be in the game, but it's here to stay, like it or not. They're not going to remove it now, and I believe it can be fixed by just simply making it released into parts, kind of like what they've done with Siege of Orgrimmar this patch. Although they haven't done it like long enough, like they had the first week the patch was out, they didn't have Raid Finder available at all. Second week the patch was out, they released the first part of Raid Finder. Third week, second part of Raid Finder, and it will continue to go until all 4 parts are released on Raid Finder. But I don't necessarily think that's very effective because that's only a week, really. You have to wait before you start it, and then, over the course of about a month, you have to wait to finish it, but that's still not really, like, that effective. I mean, if you take it week to week basis, that's really not that long to wait. They should probably do it a little bit longer, like maybe wait a month to release the first part, and then like in a month release that first part, then wait another month and do that for all 4 parts. I mean, I know that would probably piss a lot of people off, but I think it would solve some of the issue, because the whole thing that they have done with flexi rating in patch 5.3 is they want to encourage people to go above and beyond Raid Finder. So they're trying to like correct their mistake with Raid Finder and backtrack a little bit, because they know that they can't just up and remove the thing, or you're going to have millions of people just drop their subscriptions. So that, they can't just remove it from the game. So that's out of the question. But obviously, delaying Raid Finder's release more time, I think, is a good option. Or, as DD Guides has suggested in numerous of his videos, which I think is definitely the most legitimate, is wait a whole content patch after to release it. Because in Pandaria, they've had all these filler patches, like they had 5.0, 5.1, and then they had 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4, and what will be 5.5. Say with Siege of Orgrimmar, don't release it on Raid Finder the whole time that 5.4 is out, but when 5.5 comes out, then you release Raid Finder, all of it at once, and then people are free to do it. Because that way, people that still want to experience the content, relatively before the next tier of content comes out, um, that way they still can, but they have to wait an entire content patch afterwards, which is anywhere from about 2 to 3 months, roughly. So I think that would be a pretty good solution. As far as the daily quests thing is concerned, again, I think it's kind of irrelevant now, because the Time Messiah really doesn't have any, and if they do, they're little fun little trivia things, or like little treasure finding things. So I don't really mind those. And obviously, in the past with 5.2, 5.1, and 5.0 daily quest hubs, yes, they were a pain in the ass. Yes, they shouldn't have been to the extent that they were, because they were trying to go back to the grindy style of like Burning Crusade dailies, which really didn't work. So that was definitely a mistake. I agree with the community as a whole so far, really, um, on these issues. And then, and finally, the argument of the whole Pandaria and pandas and everything like that from the launch trailer. And this is where I have to kind of debunk the community a little bit, because I think it was really stupid and kind of butthurt-ish, if you will, of the community to react to Missa Pandaria's reveal trailer in such a way as it did, because it again goes back to that whole idea of don't judge a book by its cover. And it's really, really stupid to just go, oh, well, it's about pandas. I guess it's going to be a kid's game and be terrible. That's not really a good way to react to anything. If you see a movie trailer but it looks like really bad, and then everyone's talking about how good the movie is, I mean, obviously you misjudged it. I mean, you can't judge everything by its cover. Now, yes, trailers are generally supposed to get you hyped up for a game and get your opinion of the game, but you can still misjudge it, and the trailer can just be badly executed, but the game can be well executed. So it's not really a fair thing. The trailer is really there so you can get a judgment of it, if you will, and deem if you want to buy it or not, really. But considering that a lot of people that criticize Mr. Pandaria, saying how pandas were stupid and Kung Fu Panda and the land of Pandaria was dumb, how it was all made up, considering people that criticize that ended up buying it anyway, that really doesn't sit well with me particularly. And you see this all the time, is that people complain yet they still buy it. And buying the product that Blizzard released in Missa Pandaria, if you don't like it by the trailer, that's fine. If you think it's stupid, that's fine. Then don't buy the game. That's my only issue with that, is what, you're free to think that. I think you're kind of ignorant if you do. But if you do believe that, then that's just fine. Just don't buy the product until you, like, say, just look up beta footage or look up final footage of the retail game, and then from there judge whether or not you want to purchase the expansion. But before you have a solid understanding of what you're getting yourself into, do not buy it. And that's just a general consumer's standpoint. That's not just WoW, that's just anything you buy. Do not buy it unless you know what you're paying for. So that was my little tangent on that. That's my thoughts on the community's negative feelings towards Pandaria. Overall, these are really the only negatives that I really see that are that much of an issue. Other ones I think are just overreactions, and even these to a certain extent can be somewhat overreacted. But stay tuned for part 2, where I cover all the positives of Pandaria more positively, less rantish kind of video. And I hope you all enjoyed this first part, and I hope you will all stay tuned to the second part. And this is me, Noah, from Knights of 67, and I will see you guys next time.